of the brain train revolution. What you visualize will materialize.
That's right.
Is that true?
Very true. In fact, that's more true than anything else, because thoughts materialize themselves visually first. We're about 60% of our inputs are visual. And that's why we have so many music videos and so many subliminal cuts when you go to a movie, that so many of the previews just show little clips of that, because we're very visual. Even if we talk a lot like me, and even if we think we're verbal, we still have most of our inputs are visual. And that's why when you visualize, it's more likely to materialize, because thoughts are not words, but words do manifest themselves in thought.
Okay. And so if we're visualizing things often in our minds, you know, negative, positive, daydreaming, how come some things come true and some things don't?
A lot of it has to do with self-expectancy, or the degree of optimism that you have, or the amount of repetition that that particular image has for you. And so it's very important to have a sequence of visualization that occurs on a regular basis. And for most people, unfortunately, 80% of it is from the media. And the media realizes that bad news sells. So you need something bad to happen to make it newsworthy. And then everyone glues onto that catastrophic image, whether it's a fire or a shooting or some kind of act of terrorism. And then people get this feeling inside that things are not going well and maybe won't go well. And they say to themselves, stand by, things are going too well, something bad is bound to happen. So we're constantly bombarded every moment of our lives that you'll either take a pill to solve the problem, or buy this product to solve the problem, or you can't solve it because every day there's bad news. So unfortunately, good news is elevator music. People don't home in on good news because it happened to somebody else, and we're wanting the good news to happen for us. So we have to imagine that, because it's not just going to happen of its own accord. So it's really important, and it's been going on since the beginning of time. And we're either seeing from within or being fed it from the outside. And in the age of technology, we're being fed a steady diet of junk food.
Yeah. And I don't know, this seems like such a complex topic. In one way, it sounds simple. Like if you're thinking, I think of the movie The Secret, and they talked about, okay, if you want a car, relationship or something, you know, visualize yourself in that relationship, try to feel all of the feelings. And that seems simple enough. Like if you did that enough times, it would start to become easier to do that. But then it seems complex, because we're living in moment to moment. Now I'm in traffic. Now my kid's late to school. Now, you know, these things are happening that kind of have you looking around at whatever's happening. So how there, it seems it could get very complex about how to keep your visualizations focused in the middle of that.
Well, that's one of the things that we'll be able to accomplish with our programs, in that we really advise, even if you just take 10 minutes a day, you know, call it my time for 10 minutes, whether it's in the morning before you get started or just before you go to sleep, which is twilight time. So twilight time is a good time to learn, because your brain begins to unhook, you begin to dream, you begin to get these pictures before you go to sleep. That's an excellent time to learn new things. And in the morning, when you're fresh, instead of watching the news, turning it on, or instead of doing your email or looking at all your text coming in, maybe take 5 minutes to 10 minutes. And if you'll take 10 minutes with the visualization exercise of being in the moment, and let me explain that. Michael Phelps is the most decorated Olympian ever, having won more gold medals than anyone ever has. When he talks, he says, ever since I've been 7 years old and started to swim, I visualize the race that I'm going to be in tomorrow in my mind so that I can see when I'm laying in bed or when I'm sitting quietly, I can see myself doing this breaststroke or doing this swim and actually seeing my fingers touch the other end of the pool first, coming in first with that and how many strokes that will take. Andre Agassi says that he wins his games 40 minutes before the match in the shower. As he's taking a long 40-minute shower, he goes through the tennis match. And as I've studied now, of course, we're talking about champions, but we remember we're all looking for championship lives and champion lives in our own way. So you take Lindsey Vonn, the world-class skier. She goes a step further. She actually gets on her skis in her apartment and shifts her weight as she runs the ski run in her mind 100 times. And as she goes through, she never misses one of those gates, never knocks down the flag from the outside. And if she does the giant slalom in her mind, she doesn't fail, she doesn't fall. And the beauty about the visualized pre-play in life is your mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly rehearsed image and the real thing. It stores as fact. And that's why when we go to movies, we get in the movie, we get frightened, we get sad, we get happy. I mean, I like to go to chick flicks because I go to chick flicks like An Affair to Remember or when I Sleepless in Seattle and all those. And when I'm crying in there, of course, other people say, you're not actually crying in this movie just because Valentine's Day on the Empire State Building finally worked out. I said, no, I got something in my eye because big boys don't cry. But if a movie where you know there's actors and actresses can evoke an emotional response, think of what you can evoke by pre-playing your greatest dreams and replaying the right one, even if you fail. So the idea in visualization is to pre-play, which would be to make the movie in your mind. And then let's say that it doesn't work out well, then you have the ability to replay that like a music video that you've just decided to edit because you didn't like the first one. And the mind cannot distinguish the replay from the real thing you did. And that's why it's better never to replay an accident, an illness, a mistake. If you replay, you reinforce. If you dwell on it, you reinforce. So that's why this, and the visual cortex is in the back of the brain. So your eyes are only a Apple camera or a Samsung camera, really great fidelity. And the Apple smartphone takes the camera picture, but the picture goes in the back of the brain and is stored there in your storage. It's in your gallery in the back of your brain. And all those images are stored there. And the more emotional they are and the more repeated they are, the more they finally create a neural pathway that makes you more like that every day. And that's the secret, is repetition and internalization by adding emotion or music or feelings to the visual images.
You've said so much. One thing that I think is really important is that morning time, that evening time, dropping in the images that you really want to go in, because things are highly reinforced in those moments. So it would seem at the very least awesome to take the 10 minutes, but definitely eliminate things that you don't want programming your brain in that time frame. The other thing is, what do you do when you haven't ever been there before? So it's hard to visualize it. How do you gain the images?
That's a great question. So when we're young, we haven't done anything much yet other than imagine when we're children. And as you know, when we're children, we have this incredible imagination. We're going to be superheroes. I'm going to be a fireman. I remember a little girl with red hair and freckles. I'm going to be president of the United States. And you feel like saying, you go, girl. You know,
Yeah.
you do that. And when we're kids, we just have this incredible ability to do it. And as we get older, we get to be a junior in high school or a senior in high school. And we've learned all the facts that things don't work out. We're not as pretty and not as handsome, not as athletic, not as cool. And we begin to bring in the dream a little bit. And we begin to put walls and a ceiling on the dream. And then we get grades and the teacher tells us something and our parents and coaches tell us things. And we believe them because they're authority figures in our life. And we narrow this down so that by the time most people graduate from high school, the dream is very small. So I call them a redwood tree planted in a flower pot. The flower pot becomes the boundaries of our imaginary limits, which are psychological limitations. And yet this redwood tree is ready to grow to be 90 to 100 feet high and live for 500 years, but we put it in a flower pot and the roots get stunted that way. So one of the reasons when we're young is we get lots of no's and don'ts and you can't, and you've got to be kidding, and that you'll never do that, or it doesn't work out. And we need to shut those out and hang around with people with similar dreams, not similar problems, but similar goals, similar dreams. So even if you're in a negative environment in a family, find friends and new people and coaches and teachers who believe in you. And you know, like I said, I used to ride my bike 20 miles just for the privilege of mowing my grandmother's lawn because she said, you are such a good boy. You really mow a great lawn. So if you haven't done anything much yet, be careful and don't let the naysayers, don't let the Scrooges in the world rain on your parade and take away your dream. You know, hang on to those and hang around with other dreamers especially, and people in different fields, because the optimists rule the world and the pessimists clean up the locker room. So the optimists win, the pessimists say, well, yeah, sure, they got lucky and blah, blah, blah. Didn't happen to me. So when you're young, find mentors, coaches, and role models with proven track records of success who've actually done what you want to do, not just written about it or talked about it. There are a lot of us in the field who talk, and we're good at talking, we're good at telling stories, and we have this ability to make an audience say, wow. But unless we've been there in the shoes of the person who's trying to go there, it's really hard for them to identify because it sounds so easy when a guru says, all you need to do is visualize and it will materialize. But you become a 26-year or 50-year overnight success because you stumbled onto these ideas. So we'd like to make it simpler, easier, and more scientifically researched so that people can actually change, not just for a week or a weekend, but for the rest of their lives.
I'm so excited about this because we're not only teaching people, but we're training trainers so they can better help and assist their clients and their, sales teams and the people that they're working with. They'll have these modalities to get great results with them because that's why we're in the business. Anyone who wants to help anyone is wanting to help. So having scientifically based tools to use in our own lives as well as with clients, loved ones, children, amazing. So I want to break this down into two different ways. So there are certain people that are right now very clear that there's an area of life they'd like to be better. Either it's usually health, money, or love, their relationships, right?
Exactly.
And they're right? And they're very clear. I need my soulmate, or I need a man, a man who values me, a woman who values me, or I want more money in my life. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, or I'm not fulfilled here. I'm meant for more. Or there's something in the health. I really need to get that last 10 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever it is. So there are some people that are very clear that there's a goal. I want to write a book. And I would imagine visualizing for that is one thing. But then there are some people who that's not even an option right now. It's just, I'm angry all the time. I'm overwhelmed all the time. I feel bored I'm more often than not. So how do I just get to normal or inspiration again, or over this kind of thing, which is a different kind of challenge and where visualization comes in. So I'd love for you to speak to, okay, if I'm going to dedicate 10 minutes and I'm in this category or this category, how do you approach each? And I know that you go way deeper in your programming, but just, quick kind of takeaway.
Well, I think that's really a good question, because a lot of people aren't able to, they aren't able to even say, I don't know what my passion is. I've never thought about my passion. I've been too busy working, earning money, raising children, overcoming health problems. I've been too busy trying to survive rather than get into the Maslow's upper hierarchy of beauty and what I'd really love to do. And I think the thing to do is to first determine, which will help people do, what do you control and what do you not control? And a lot of things in life you have no control over. You can't control how you were born. You can't control how you were raised. You can't control totally how your body structure is made up, and some of the health issues have been predisposed genetically. But what we can control is the way we respond to who we are. So I think the thing to do is to take a personal awareness audit, which means step back from the canvas of your life and say to yourself, given my parents and my background, am I glad I'm me? Would I rather be somebody else other than me? And if so, who and why? What am I working with here? Wow, I have two eyes and I have a face and I've got arms and legs, and a lot of people don't even have this kind of head start. So I'm better to count your blessings first and then your blemishes second. And your blessings will always outweigh your blemishes. So most people concentrate on what's wrong with them when they look in the mirror. They see somebody they're really not happy with. So if you do what I call a self-awareness audit, and then the other thing is to, as we talked about generally, dust off your childhood. And I'm sure that when you were growing up, each of us had things that we loved. We love them, we love things, we love places, we love people, and we love things to do. And you need to go back to those days when you were more carefree and you weren't as limited, and you weren't told so many times that can't be accomplished. And dust off the free times in your life, whether it was at school, after school, on the weekends, that you really love doing something. Then take your life right now. If you didn't go to work, and you didn't need to, and if you had enough money and your health allowed, what would you do with your day? In fact, what do you do with your free time? So your free time is the only time you can spend on you. And that's why I say, if you take 10 minutes and you take the negatives, for me, it was being late. For me, it was because they called me Dumbo ears. I was called Dumbo when the first movie came out. And I had a buzzard beak and beaver teeth. Maybe I needed braces, and I didn't like exactly how I looked, and I didn't like certain things. I finally took the negatives and created the opposite look, but I put that into words because for me it was important to be, instead of always late, to be on time. So instead of being overweight, I was my desired weight. And instead of being angry, I was in control. Instead of having little free time, I made better use of my time, and I converted that because I knew I had control of my next thought, and I knew I had control of my imagination, and I didn't want the media to be my imagination. I didn't want the images on the internet. I didn't want movies to be my input. I wanted the input to come from inside out. So I took my life as it was and flipped the negatives to positive, knowing that all I could control is the way I imagined, the way I thought, and the way I responded. So I began to say to myself, I respond calmly and quietly to problems. I'm in control. I speak calm and deeply and authoritatively. I like who I am, and it shows. I smile a lot. I am always early at meetings. Now, of course, that wasn't true. That was only in my mind, in my imagination. But my brain didn't know. So my brain kept saying, are you kidding me, or what's going on here? I thought we were always late, always angry, and always feeling bad and always stressed. I said, well, that's the old me. So be quiet and let me tell you how I am in reality, in my new virtual reality. And as you do that, the repetition of that, and if you can construct those over in a 10-minute period, so that both the words, the pictures, the emotions, and the sensory feelings, and that's another thing. When you imagine something, I used to do this in seminars. I used to pretend that I was pulling my fingernails down a blackboard. And you know how that sounds when you take your fingernails and screech them? It gets you in the nerves and you go, oh my gosh, don't do that. And I used to say to somebody, the big black snake slithered across the floor and behind your chair. And everyone went, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then I said, there's a spider hanging down. And they go, oh. I said, no, there's not. I just said that.
Yeah.
You only imagined it because I created with words an image. But what if you use the images of you doing something? And here's the difference between this and another program. When you're a figure skater, you don't sit and pretend you're watching you from the audience or from the judges. That's what you're not. You're not the judge watching you skate. You're you looking at your skating performance in real time through your own eyes. So when I go backstage at the Olympics, the skaters are back there and they have their skates on, but they have that rubber molding over it so the skates won't get dull on the blade. And they're backstage going, and they're doing a triple axel and they're doing it again, and they're going through the motions and the emotions of it hundreds of times. And the skiers are going like this because they're actually coming down the hill in their mind, but it's as if the camera is on your ski tips. And this is the way it has to be. You need to see you through your eyes doing this. So when I go to give a keynote speech, I go into the room and I pretend that I walk out and I see somebody in the audience and I see their smiling faces rather than their puzzled faces. And I pick seats in the audience and I begin to rehearse that and maybe more confident. And I'm not one of those leapers or loud, I'm not one of those exciting speakers. I'm a cerebral speaker, but I still pretend that I'm in control of the audience, that I'm speaking comfortably, and that they're standing up after I get through speaking and they're going like this. And instead of thinking, oh, they're happy to be leaving or there's a fire drill, I say, actually, they're actually clapping because of what they heard and saw me say. I do that over and over and over, and I've been doing it since I've been a little boy. And that's why when I walk out on a stage, even though my heartbeat goes up, even though I swallow and my throat gets a little dry, I don't need to bring my water with me. I don't need to stand behind a podium with notes. I can go through it as if it's as natural as brushing my teeth or an Olympian skating or a high jumper jumping. And that's when I first discovered it myself, was in the 1960s in Mexico City at altitude. The high jump event was taking place. And there was this young red-haired freckle-faced boy named Dick Fosbury. And he rocked back and forth in front of the high jump bar. It was set at 7 feet 5 3/4, back and forth. And the media said, "What's he doing? Is he upset? Is he trying to get control?" And they interviewed him after he created the world's record by doing a backward swan dive, which was called the Fosbury flop. And now all high jumpers run to the bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they turn over upside down and go over backward over the bar. When they interviewed him, he said, "Oh, what was I doing?" He said, "I was going to the high jump bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, going over backwards, landing on the foam rubber, looking up, and the bar was still up there." And so he was doing the high jump in his mind. And that's the first time on television that we saw the actualization of that. And ever since then, I've noticed it everywhere. Actors, actresses, salespeople, people planning a wedding. Look at a mother planning a wedding. Oh my gosh. I mean, she goes, let's see, they're going to come in here, and then the guests are going to put this here, and then we're going to have this. And this is, and she goes through over and over again, the wedding, the reception. And the daughter says, "I'd like a horse-drawn carriage," and a little flower girl putting white petals out in front. And the mother gets that image, and she does the best she can to create that. And she's done it. And then the wedding happens. And everyone says, "Wasn't it just beautiful?" And the mother says, "Yeah, I've been doing it. I've been doing this wedding for 8 months." And yes, it turned out just like we imagined. And that's why it's so important to flip the negatives into positives, create a visual image of that, verbalize it if you can, of course, emote it at the time, and then get into the mood where your brain is quieted enough to accept what you're saying and not just be a coach or a critic. Your brain becomes a critic more often than not and says, "Come on, you're dreaming now. This is not the you I know. If this is the new you, show me more." And that's why you need a cross section of those images. You need to see this non-angry person, this calm person. And you need to see this person that doesn't get hysterical, and this person that says, "Stop, okay, calm down, slow down." So there are also images that can be evoked by just one word: speed, power, extend, calm, in control, need a 10, got a 10, just like practice, first serve in, backhand right. That's more like it. Now we're getting somewhere. So if you begin to take the psycholinguistics, the visualization, the emotions, and the mood, you're on your way to becoming the new you. And that's why what we say, what you truly visualize will materialize. And one more thing, I've always said that Napoleon said, "Imagination rules the world." But Einstein said it even better. He said, "Imagination's more important than knowledge, because knowledge is limited to all we now know, but imagination is limited to all we have yet to learn and all we will ever know." And that's why it's so important to never lose sight of your passion, dream, and your image of your, not perfect, but your excellent reality.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I think I just want to ask, I feel like you were saying that even for people that have lost sight of a dream, there is the things you can do, like managing emotion, like the Denis Waitley, you're always on time, the way that you started shifting, feeling calm and all that. But even with that, dusting off your childhood, coming back to some sort of passion, vision, purpose for your life, the best that you can see it in the moment, seems like that will help you in your goal of shifting emotions or habits as well, or not? Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, that's the way habits are formed. They're formed by observing and imitating, and then it becomes a reflex. Smoking is that way, and drinking too much, eating too much, and all the behaviors that we don't want have been learned by watching somebody doing them, and we take that. And maybe we don't want to be like that, but maybe we're in a household where the adult authorities, our role models, are doing that. And at work, I remember being in a company where all the employees smoked the same brand of cigarette that the general manager did. And I remember that in one company, the CEO was very aggressive and very, very mean. So we had a meaner company, get these outside role models more. So it doesn't matter what you want to do in life, but we all want to have a better life. So if you want a better life, be thinking and seeing better images. And that's why I spend so little time watching TV now and spend much more time watching things that are beautiful and that I feel are inspiring. So I try to be around inspiring images, inspiring sounds, and inspiring people, and they rub off on me.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'm so excited we have this series going. We're going to continue over the next few weeks in the Brain Train Revolution. And those of you watching this replay, if you're wanting to go deeper in this and really learn how to win at every area that matters to you in life, then this is the place to get the tools for that. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes time, but you'll at least have the tools for real change. And if that appeals to you, reach out to me, send a private message. I'll also put a booking link. You can book a complimentary chat and we can talk about what's going on in your world and how we might work together, meaning Denis Waitley and his team, and go deeper with these. But if you're enjoying this, share it, host a watch party. We're going to be noticing those things and giving some special things out. And Denis, is there anything you'd like to say as a final?
Well, I'd just like to thank you, Adora, first for making these live chats possible. I'd like to thank the entire team, and I'd like to thank each of you watching and observing. And just remember, you have within you the greatest power of all, the power to imagine a better tomorrow, and you also have the power of choice. You can choose how you spend your happiness and joy. So enjoy the rest of your day and night.
Woohoo! All right. Thank you.